Hello everyone, I am Greg, the guy who makes YouTube videos on Life from X. Oh wow, the audio is really loud, so I'm going to turn down the audio. Here we go. Yeah, let me bring this down. With me over here is Carlo Carosi.
Hello.
And he is a music composer, and he made the music for the Being Japanese documentary, as well as the What Japanese Really Eat for Breakfast. Let me see. I'm just listening to myself, listening to the audio. I'm just going to put it down even a little bit lower here. Okay. Oh, there's someone there. Haha, good afternoon. Okay. This is really weird. I have Inception because I have a 20-second delay right over here. And then I can hear myself in here. But I'm going to take off these headphones. And if the music is too loud or weird, just let me know. Wait, I think this is too low now, the audio. I'm going to put up to 30. All right. So if you guys want the music going up, just let me know. If you want the music to go down, let me know, okay? So I'll just do the introduction again with better audio here, better levels. So I'm Greg. I obviously am on the channel Life Where I'm From X is where this is at. And this is Carlo Carosi.
Hello.
He's a music composer, and he made the music for the Being Japanese documentary, as well as the What Japanese Really Eat for Breakfast. So we're here to take your questions, answer your questions about how we made the music for those two pieces, but as well, which is actually him making the music, me just choosing stuff, as well as kind of how do I go about choosing music for YouTube, when to use music or not, or any questions you might have. So yes, we have, hey, make videos with your kids. If they want to, they'll be on. And thank you, Ha, for the cash. That's nice. Thank you so much. Yeah, so let's see. Maybe Carlo, talk about the process of making music for the documentary.
Sure. Yeah, so the documentary, whenever a project starts, it's always like very exciting because you kind of have this thing in mind, what it could be, and then you start watching the footage and start going back and forth about what you want and what I want and what I'm capable of making, and whittling it down basically to a finished product. It's always way more work and way more time than you think it's going to be.
How long did it take?
I think in the end, because of COVID, we kind of put things on hold. We talked a little bit, and that went back and forth for like a year, just waiting and waiting. And then once we really got into it, I would say there was a solid like 3-4 months, maybe 5 months. What do you think? 4 months maybe, where I was just sending you tracks, you were sending comments, I was revising everything, sending it back, and it pretty much went on like that until we were both really happy with it. So yeah, probably 3-4 solid months of back and forth work.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, let me put the documentary music on the background here so that we can hear that, because that was the What Japanese Really Eat for Breakfast background music. All right. Yeah, for the music, so I think in the end it was like 51 tracks you ended up making.
Yeah.
So are those 51 like
51 used in the movie, right?
Right. So how many tracks do you think you made to get down to 51? Like, how many did you actually make?
Probably closer to 80, maybe 90 or something.
I kind of thought it was more, but that's okay.
Okay, maybe more.
I don't know. It felt like a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and how's the audio level, guys? Can you put a comment in the comments or in the chat? Is the audio too loud, too soft? Is it all good? Let me know, please. Yeah, I mean, for the documentary, I wanted to do something special, so that's why I had Carlo come and do the music for it. And it was actually kind of a tricky process because I had heard his previous work on soundtracks and individual tracks, and I liked the sound. I liked how he had a theme throughout his entire music. Like when I listen to an album, it all has a theme. I like that, and I wanted that for the documentary as well. But when it actually came time to hearing tracks from him, I guess what he thought fit a scene was different from what I thought fit a scene, and I think it took quite a few rounds before it finally just clicked. You know, like out of 50 tracks he sent me, I think I chose like 5 or 6 or something. I don't know. It was really low. And then from there, we went on and just kept on building up the sound, and then it seemed to work out. But let me look at some questions. Do you choose the mood of the shot before or after you start hearing music for it? Do you choose the mood of the shot before or after you...
That's a question for you.
Yeah. Actually, I don't quite understand that question.
Well, okay. I watched footage and then made music to it, but maybe did you change any of your editing once you heard some music?
Okay. That's okay. I was wondering if that's how it's going. So for the documentary's case, absolutely not, generally. Like, I might have tweaked a few things here and there, but the documentary was fairly set in its timing. Sometimes I would, move things 5 seconds around this way, 2 seconds this way, stretch things out, shorten things. But essentially, I had what the documentary was, and then it was your job to, like, throw in the music. But yeah. I think you thought that...
Projects in the past that I've done, I would just make a bunch of tracks and send them to the director, and they would kind of edit the film to the music. So for me, this was really new. I didn't come in at the end, but I kind of came in while you were wrapping the project up. And this is the first time I had to like really score things to like editing that already existed. And that was tricky, but I think it was really, once we figured that out, it was really satisfying. So that was fun. For me, that was a new experience, yeah.
It was really great for me, especially when it started clicking. Yeah, like, I don't know how far it was, like 80% or 90% into our time, like working on stuff, like it started clicking. Every track you sent to me was like, oh, yeah. Works perfectly, awesome. And the way you could tailor the tracks to match the scenes, you know, when we need to switch the tone, or if you needed to like fade it out or end it nicely or start it like better or whatnot.
Yeah.
It was really cool to be able to customize stuff.
By the end, there were kind of a whole bag of tricks that we had that we could use a different thing for every scene. Like the song would completely change at some like emotional turns, and then there were some that would like slow down at the end and kind of fade out rather than just fade it out quickly, you know. They had nice endings, right?
Yeah.
I think what was interesting with what Japanese really eat for breakfast was we really didn't know about background music. Like you weren't sure whether to have it through the whole video or just certain parts.
Yeah. So I'll get to that. I just wanted to talk about, like, Amir was asking about what influences you in making music.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a good question because a lot of times it's music. I grew up like playing music and just listening to music my whole life, all the time. But also sometimes it's like visual art or like just looking at some of your shots, like your drone shots. It's that like really inspires me to just want to make music to put over it. Sometimes it's like reading a book or something like really inspires me to like write some lyrics or something. So honestly, like it can be anything that influences me. But if you're asking about specific music influences, I would say, I don't know, I grew up listening to like a lot of film soundtracks too. A lot of like Japanese artists actually, like Ryuichi Sakamoto and Yellow Magic Orchestra, and like the Ghibli films, all that kind of stuff. Final Fantasy video game soundtracks were like a huge part of my childhood. So I always kind of go back to that and like re-listen and think about like the mood and stuff and how that works with those games. Yeah, and then I guess on this side of the pond, just a lot of like really like ambient music, Brian Eno, and like shoegaze stuff and like really atmospheric stuff. So just everything influences me really.
Okay. Now to get back to the question of, I guess you're talking about whether to add background music or not in the What Japanese Really Eat for Breakfast, but that was kind of the same with the documentary as well. It's like, when does music distract from the what they're saying, or does it change what they're saying? Because in the documentary, I really didn't want to change, how they said things. Because you put like a really sad track, it makes everything they say sad. If you put a happy one, then it might sound off when they're talking about really harsh things, or maybe it changes the mood a lot, right? When you have music. So I think that's kind of what happened with the documentary, where we weren't seeing eye to eye, was that, what did we say? Like, you were making like the music like the centerpiece, kind of, when you're making music, because maybe that's what you're used to, right? You're only hearing the music, and the music was the centerpiece. But I wanted the music to be like, complementing what was on screen, right? So
just elevating it a little bit,
right? Versus taking it over and like directing it, right? Because the documentary was very talk heavy. So, I mean, the most important thing was always what the people were saying, right? And just for this specific documentary. So that's where we kind of had to switch it around. Now, for the What Japanese Really Eat for Breakfast one, that was way easier to work together because we had done the whole documentary together. So I think most of your tracks, I ended up using, we much modified some, but I think I used everything, did I not?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I think so. But the big question was, because I wanted to make it into a series, would this work for others in the series? Like, what's the tone of the series? And, it's kind of light and fun, and kind of piquing your interest into different culture and what people really eat. So I think it worked out, and viewers seem to enjoy it and watching it. So
I think that, What Japanese Really Eat for Breakfast. Now, when we finished the documentary, we had talked a few times about whether we would develop a shorthand, and whether we'd be able to get a project done faster than the documentary. So I think this was a really good test, and I think I don't know, I turned that music around like pretty quickly. I think like most of it I had in like 2-3 days.
Yeah.
Which I kind of knew right away where to start, which really helped. Whereas before, I think just finding that starting point was hard for us. But once I had that starting point, sent you some rough tracks right away, I think you were like, okay, this can work. Let's do this. Let's do that.
The one big thing, and here, let me just put the breakfast music on in the background here. So I'm going to put the background music. Here we go. So you had sent me one background track, right? And I have, including my family's breakfast, we have 9 breakfasts to show. So I tried putting that in. I'm like, okay, for the first person it works, the second person kind of, and then it's like, wow, it's super repetitive having the same background music go on again and again.
And you also have that 7-second theme song to introduce everyone.
Right, so I have like a title card.
It's already repetitive.
Right, but the title card's only 7 seconds, and it's kind of like, the reoccurring title card. So for that, I was fine with it repeating. But having the same background music for each person at certain points, it just was not working. So I said, hey, let's just kind of scrap this background idea. I don't think it's working. But then I don't know, maybe you had already made 2 extra tracks for me, or you ignored me. I don't know. But you sent 2 more tracks, and then I'm like, okay, well, he went through the effort of making these background tracks. So with 3 background tracks, I started throwing them in. I'm like, okay, this is actually working. It's making the whole video easier to watch, right? More enjoyable to watch. And it's not, changing in a bad way what it is. Because I don't want to make it unauthentic, I guess, is what I'm trying not to do. But, I mean, it makes it light and happy to watch. And I think that's the feeling I wanted to have. So it worked out. But I thought, okay, 3's not enough, so I asked for like a couple more tracks just to get more variety.
Yeah.
And you did come up with those, and it worked out. I ended up using, between those 5 tracks, I peppered them throughout. So each track was used a few times, but because it was only used a few times versus like 15 times throughout the video, it worked out, I think.
Yeah, I didn't get the repetitious feeling at all watching it. And I've watched it a couple times with all the music, and it's good. It really works, I think. Yeah,
the first time I watched it with all the music, I'm like, okay, this is better, so we're gonna keep the music.
Cool.
Okay, so let me go back to some questions here. Greg and Carlo, did you use music that would be pleasing to Japanese ears in particular? Your music reminds me a lot of Studio Ghibli at the real instrumental music.
There you go. there's my influences right there coming through. I'm sure people pick up on it too. Yeah. Yeah. I guess that person just said it right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think one thing that I had was talking about is like, how do we get some Japanese instruments in? And at first, I was trying to get somebody who could play like koto or like shamisen, like some like really Japanese sounding music.
Mm-hmm.
But we figured that, or I found out pretty quickly that shamisen, at least in the more traditional playings, it really doesn't jive with, people talking. It's not like a background type of music thing.
Yeah.
Whereas the koto, you didn't know how to play it, but you have a digital koto you could use, right?
Yeah, I ended up getting like a really good virtual instrument of a koto, and it just kind of works with strings and pads and all these other like softer instruments, and almost sounds like a harp, like someone playing a harp, and you just pepper it in a little bit and just gave it just enough Japanese flavor, I think, which I was very happy with. Yeah.
Yeah, I liked how it just came in and out, and I liked. I guess you were talking about like Final Fantasy or Studio Ghibli. Like I could hear some elements in some of the tracks. I don't know if it was November or something. Like is it like 8-bit kind of stuff sometimes, or
November had a little bit of that chiptune 8-bit.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I liked how that came in, kind of. I really like that.
Yeah.
And
I initially wanted to do. I was thinking like more. Maybe there would be like whole 8-bit tracks or something, but I kind of quickly abandoned that idea. But
maybe for future projects.
I do have a whole album of 8-bit music.
And I heard it and I liked it. So yeah. Yes.
That was pretty good, yeah.
And well, I mean, the link to his Bandcamp is right there, carlocroce.bandcamp.com, and you can listen to his previous albums as well as the Being Japanese documentary album. And he's actually selling the soundtrack for $5 US, which is pretty affordable.
Or maybe Canadian.
$5 Canadian, wow, even cheaper. That's like $1 US, right? But the interesting thing is if you watch the documentary and then you listen to the soundtrack, they're actually not exactly the same. Because what did you do to it?
Like the track order, you mean?
Not the track order, but you actually kind of filled out the tracks a bit more, right? And
that's true. We had some tracks that were kind of rough, I guess. So like some of them were looped like really long. So I just kind of like tuck them in and put an ending on them and like clean them up a little bit. And then other tracks were like too short and I thought they needed room to breathe on an album. Some of the more ambient tracks, they might have been like used for 1 minute in the documentary, but I thought, no, this needs like 3 minutes to really kind of let you enjoy it before it disappears. So so I did a little work cleaning up and making it work as an album, I think.
Yeah, I really loved it. Like, it wasn't we never started with the idea of making it into an album, but after we're done, we watched the documentary together. Carl's like, hey, what do you think about a soundtrack? I'm like, sure, why not? But when I listen to the soundtrack, it's a different experience than the documentary, and I really enjoyed the tracks as it. I thought it was pretty cool. I'm very happy that you made it, so thank you.
Yeah, well, thanks for giving me the opportunity. It's probably some of my favorite work I've done, so.
Well, that's really nice to hear. Yeah.
Very happy with
okay, so let's see. Looking for some other questions. Influence. You like the background music? Cool. Oh, bought the documentary. Thank you, Sealam. A lot of foreign documentaries about Japan use traditional sounding Japanese as background music. Was it a conscious decision not to do the same? Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, if he would have put some really I don't know, a lot of the I had looked originally at some royalty-free stuff, and anytime you type in Japan and hear the music, I think often a lot of the people don't even know what Japanese music is, and so it doesn't sound like Japanese music to me. But I'm not a Japanese music expert, but they sound like more like, I would say, like general Asian than it does Japanese.
Something you'd hear at a spa or something, right?
I don't know. Like the instruments, I'm like, no, this doesn't quite sound right. So I think, I just want it to be personally like modern music, but with some Japanese influences and stuff. So I think that's what you accomplished. So, yeah. CLM, how much percentage does Greg get from Vimeo for selling the doc? I don't mind answering this question because I think it's very important for people to know how things work. So with Vimeo, there was a whole bunch of choices for choosing Vimeo, and one is that I could re-upload the video or replace the video if some problems happened. And I did find out some colors weren't quite the way I wanted, and some titles were doing some funky things, and I was able to replace those videos. But another big reason is because Vimeo, you can do it yourself. You don't need any middleman to go through. You can just upload it yourself, and then the revenue share, they say it's 90%. I keep 90, but after you include some other fees, it actually ends up being around 80%. I think it's like taxes and like credit card fees. It's probably more like 80%, which is pretty good.
That's
for
really good,
a selling platform to keep 80%. But for my people who support on Patreon, I keep about 90% of whatever, people provide for that. So that's a lot better on Patreon. If you go through YouTube memberships, you'd only get 70%. And if you went through iTunes or Amazon or Google, you'd only get 50%. And some people ask me, why didn't I go on like Amazon or Apple or Google? It's because Amazon stopped accepting non-curated documentaries. So unless you had some distributor that had a relationship that said this documentary is good enough to be on Amazon, they stopped doing that. And I didn't know about it.
Didn't you just miss that by like a month or something?
A few months, yeah. I think they did change that in March 2021. They pulled things after too. So they pulled a whole bunch. So even if I would have met the deadline, it might have been pulled. To get onto Apple and Google, it's possible, but you have to pay a few $1,000s for that, middle company, in between company, to like process the documentary, and then you only get 50% of the cut. So it just didn't seem quite worth it.
Yeah.
Especially since I know it's going to be on YouTube next year. I'm putting on YouTube. So if you don't have the finances, you can just wait a year to watch the documentary. But obviously, if you want to see it now, it's only it's only $5 US, and translated to different currencies, whatever that comes up to. But you can rent it for $5 US and see the behind the scenes too. And yeah. All right, so let's answer some more questions. Hey, I'll ask my brother to gift me the documentary access. So that's cool. The background music with the marimbas almost sounded like iPhone ringtone.
I have an Android phone, so I'm not sure what you're even referring to.
Okay, and I'm switching the music up here to beaches, just because I think we heard the earlier music. Where will the soundtrack be available, in what format?
Regarding that question, so you can get the soundtrack here.
You're trying to point me. You gotta go to like point downwards, I think, or like this.
Here we go. Right. Here,
yeah, there you
like
go.
That.
Yeah, like that.
Yeah, so you can purchase it there, or I think you can listen to it a couple times before it makes you buy it. You can also stream it. Just look up Carlo Carosi on Spotify and like any other streaming service. I'm pretty sure you can listen to it everywhere. And I also have another project called Galaxy Donuts. I saw someone say something about lo-fi something. So it's like a lo-fi hip-hop project that I haven't released anything in like almost a year now, but it was going really well, and then I just got super busy with life. But I should have some new stuff coming out for Galaxy Donuts as well. So yeah, Spotify, Bandcamp.
Yeah, and the link's in the description too.
Cool,
so
thanks.
If you need something to click on, it's there. So yeah. 8% is pretty good, much better than YouTube Super Chats. I don't even know what the percentage is from YouTube Super Chats. Is it like 55%, or is it...
Oh man, they keep all that?
Do they keep a big chunk, or is it like they keep 30%, you get 70? I don't know. But, okay. How much was the total production cost? Yeah, okay, that one I'm fine with answering too. Because I think, if other people are trying to make things, they should know what's involved. So... I think Indiegogo, the funding was about $20,000. I think that's the Canadian number, 22,000 Canadian, maybe 18,000 American, but around $20,000. And I think the total production cost was more like $40,000, and that's just in like hard expenses.
Yeah.
That doesn't include all the money, or all the time that my wife and I put into the documentary. So that was all just not paid. So that was about 1,500 hours. So however you want to value our time, just think about that. And I feel like I could comfortably say that the documentary cost, if you included all the labor, $100,000,
Mm.
and so yeah, it takes money and time. But also the other thing, I don't know, people would be, conscious of is that since my living is now off of YouTube, I couldn't produce videos on YouTube. So that means if I don't make videos, then the amount of money I make goes down, and so I make even less money. So it's opportunity cost of not producing those YouTube videos, either regularly while I was making the documentary, but also when I was editing, I completely stopped making videos for like 3 months, and yeah, so the cost to me was actually even greater. So it cost a bit of money, yeah. But now that it's done, I'm happy I did it, but I'm not looking to make another feature length for a while.
No, I think as more time goes on, you'll look back more fondly. But yeah, documentaries are so tough.
Yeah.
The way they can just kind of consume your time. Like other people I've known, documentary directors, they've got some little idea and it ends up taking like 5 years, 8 years, 13 years or something, just to follow some story. It's crazy, yeah.
I mean, I kind of like, this is something I want to do for my entire life, even after like retirement age. So I think, once I get up there in the years, that's what I'm thinking about, like doing 5-year, 10-year projects, things that just take time to, just wait it out and get all the content and see what happens. One of my favorite documentaries I've seen recently is called American Factory.
Oh, I love that.
You saw it? Okay, yeah. I mean, I was just gobsmacked by it because I'm like, how did they get all this footage? Like, if you know how a documentary is made, if you know what happens behind the scenes, you're like, how did they get like behind the scenes in this meeting with the CEO of this, billion-dollar like company, and fly over to China and get that footage? How did they get, the on the floor factory workers interviews like into their homes, and how did they get the CEOs and stuff of the American factory, and like, how did they get all this access?
Yeah.
And looking at the behind the scenes, it's just a matter of time, and just being there often enough that people forget that you're there. So they just go there like day after day or week after week, year after year, and they just think you're part of the crew now, like you're part of the company, and they just tell you things, I guess. And the amazing thing that I liked about the documentary was that they didn't, I don't think there's any narration whatsoever. I really like that. I wanted to do that for this documentary. I didn't want to put any words into it. I just wanted the people to speak for themselves. But in terms of, I just didn't have the right footage, enough access to be able to do that. I needed to film way more in order to do that. And I didn't have enough resources, because essentially it was only myself and my wife most of the time, or sometimes just myself doing the interviews. So yeah, you just didn't have enough.
I think the amount of narration is like perfect though. It's not too much.
I try to keep it
really
minimal.
I haven't even thought about the amount of narration till right now. So yeah, I would say it's used pretty sparingly.
I had different cuts where it went like, I put it in, took it out, put it in, took it out, like modified it. Like it went through so many rounds, but yeah. Okay, so Minecraft soundtrack. I guess kind of, right? Yeah. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, do you think you'll break even with this documentary, or is it more a passion project? So I had talked to some companies that were interested in helping produce, and when people asked me about what is the goal of the documentary, I always said it wasn't money, it was to get the story told. And that's still the case, actually. So I don't think I'll break even. I actually don't, because I mean, I'd have to have an incredible amount of sales until next year when I released on YouTube. And that was always a thing of mine. Like, hey, if Netflix comes knocking at the door, or Amazon, and say, hey, we want to have exclusive rights to, stream this. Well, besides the people that can rent and purchase on Vimeo, but we want to be able to stream this for like a year, then I think I'll take the money, because it'll give it a broader audience, and it'll help finance other projects in the future. But I don't think that'll happen. So at this point, I just want people to see the documentary. I don't want to put it behind a paywall for too long.
Yeah.
That's the point, is getting the stories told. So I guess it would definitely fall under the passion project category. you know. Um, let's see here. Is the doc the largest project you've completed so far? Definitely, definitely. No doubt about it, because it was multi-year, and it cost the cost, the time involved. There were so many times that I thought about quitting, or not quitting, but like just releasing it in an edited form. Like just okay, let's just make this all into a series of interviews with people, you know, and do basic editing on it. And I thought the interviews with people, because I would interview them for like, you know, anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour and a half or 2 hours, and you know, you can lightly edit it and have some really good pieces, like, and throw it on the X channel. But I still thought, I don't know, I didn't want to give up, I guess. And I had the Indiegogo people supporting me, and I promised a feature-length documentary, so I wanted to do that. And finally, things started to click, and it's like, okay, this can happen. But I don't think I really felt like it was going somewhere good until maybe June or July even of this. Maybe June, sorry, May or June, I should say. Where it felt like, okay, this is actually like...
That was when you started getting the motion graphic stuff and the illustrations.
Yeah, all the illustrations were coming in, the motion graphics, and the sound, of course, as well. And then, yeah, it all started clicking. To Carlo, what's the largest project you've worked on so far, and what did you like and not like about it?
I think this is definitely the largest project. Yeah, I think I don't know. To be honest, Greg was like really pushing me to like get the music to where it was like gonna make the movie the best. And I wasn't really used to that. In the past, I would just send music to the director and he would edit it to the music, and like wouldn't have any like comments or notes about the music. He's just like, oh, it's great. So I actually, some of those soundtracks that I've done in the past, like I'm kind of disappointed with listening to now, but this one I'm like super happy with, because I don't know, it's not often I have someone like really pushing me to like get a little further with the music and like develop things a little better. So yeah, at first I was like, oh man, this is a lot of work. This is really hard. But in the end, I'm super happy with how it all ended up. Yeah, just like listening back to the album, I'm like, wow, okay, this is pretty good. I'm kind of surprised I made this.
I'm really impressed with it. So at the end, I was like, I'm really happy I hired a music composer, because there was the option to go, like, with most of my stuff on, like 99% of my stuff on YouTube is just royalty-free music, and in the recent few years, it's been from Epidemic Sound. And the thing about that, I mean, I think they have some good music on there for sure, but
yeah, actually,
you can't tweak it to match your visuals. You have to tweak your visuals to match the music. So it's different. So to be able to tweak the music to match the visuals, match the tone, and to switch the tone halfway through, or 30 seconds in, or 42 seconds precisely to drop this or do that is so cool.
Yeah.
It's and I'm looking forward to working with Carlo again on other projects, because I have another mini documentary offshoot from the big documentary about Joe's story. So if you guys have watched the documentary, Joe had a American father and a Japanese, or has an American father and had a Japanese mother, and the father was black, and so it's like half black, half Japanese, and he had a really tough time. And I can only tell part of the story in the documentary, really condensed version, but he has a lot of interesting things to say, stories to tell, and we missed a whole other part of the story that I just couldn't put into the documentary. So, but I want to put that out as a mini documentary in the future. So I think that'd be a nice, good project to work on.
Yeah, I really love Joe's story, so I would love to do that.
Yeah. Thanks, NA, for the super chat. Thank you very much. Let's see here. So Carlo, how's living at Japan influenced music you made?
Well, that's a good question. I don't live in Japan. I live in Canada. Yeah, the weird thing about this, I guess, your viewers know that you're living in Canada currently?
I don't think, no, not necessarily.
Oh, okay.
I'm currently in Canada. Like, I mean, I guess you would know, like, the background is not the same as my place in Japan. So I'm now currently in Canada for about 2/3 of the year, and in Japan for 1/3 of the year. So it's for the kids' schooling is the reason why. So I don't think I officially ever said it. So
Is this your official announcement?
yeah, maybe. I thought people, when they watched the What Japanese Really Eat for Breakfast video, would figure out that
Right.
my sister-in-law, she's actually in my office in Japan, and I'm over here in this place, and like we're in two separate locations doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we started this, working on this together, it was like through email for a while, and then I moved from Toronto to Vancouver, and then we started doing a couple of video chats to I don't know, get to know each other a little bit and talk about where the music was supposed to go. And then getting closer to the release of the documentary, you ended up not that far from me, maybe like half an hour away or something. So
just locked out.
Yeah, so we ended up meeting up in person a couple times. It's kind of crazy how that happened, actually.
Yeah. And then you're actually moving to.
And now next month I'm moving to Canmore in Calgary or Alberta. Yeah. So we just crossed paths
for a little
just
bit.
in time.
Yeah. Okay, so Sujoy saying, I'm planning to purchase it in a week or so, and I'm going to watch with a small group of my Japanese students and friends. Awesome. Yeah, actually, one of the cool things was I've had professors, some of them that work with me on the documentary, that saying they would like, how do I show this to my students? Like, what's the process you have to go through, and they want to use it in the curriculum. So that's like one of the biggest honors, actually.
Yeah, that's
I
amazing.
wanted it to be, and that's why I spent so much time on the details, trying to double check, triple check, and just make sure that I was getting it as right as I could. I don't think you could ever get it perfect. There's always going to be mistakes, but I wanted to make it as authentic or as true as possible. And so for people saying, professors saying like the quality's enough or good enough that they want to use it, in their classes to educate people, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm super happy about that.
I think all of your videos, like I think you're very conscious about being respectful towards Japan and stuff, which is sometimes rare on YouTube, to be honest. So yeah, I think it's gonna age like really well, exploring that topic.
I hope so. Like I feel like, in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, even if like it was, this is what the people's experiences were at that time, or what at the time they're because even though the documentary was made between 2018 and 2021, some people were talking about their stories from 30 years ago, sort of like in the 1980s or the 1970s or the 1990s. So if they watch in 20 years from now, it's going to be kind of like a slice in some time period of where this was true, so seeing what Japan is like in 20 years, it'll be interesting, because I think this will be kind of like, a point in time that this is how it was. These were the discussions that were happening. Okay, let's see, another question. Would you guys ever consider a collab or documentary with Chris Broad? Well, that's probably more, Carlo could.
Yeah, he was recently talking about making a Broad in Japan video game, and I was like, oh, that's perfect. I should email him.
Actually, you should, man. Totally. Because your 8-bit stuff's pretty cool. So
do you know him personally?
I've only met him twice in person. Okay. I think. No, I've never talked to Chris. I'm always open to collaborating with people if it's the right project.
Yeah. Like
I've done so on the channel in the past, and with this documentary, collaborated with a lot of people. So if it's the right thing, I'm always game for something. Yeah. As long as I respect the person's work. Of
course. Yeah, I love his videos.
Yeah.
I find yours, a lot of research goes into them, and they're extremely informative. So I don't know, maybe you guys can combine somehow one day. That would be cool.
They're definitely different styles, but I know he puts a lot of thought into his production and how he's presenting things, and he's really dedicated to his craft. So I'm glad he's doing well. Okay, next one. What is your regular work, Carlo?
it's not music. Yeah, my regular work is like photography and retouching and graphic art stuff and a bit of design. So I worked in a studio, like a high-end graphic art studio in Toronto for 5 years before moving here. And I've just been doing freelance work for the last year. So been enjoying working from home, to be honest. It's pretty nice. And music, I would love to do more music, but it's hard to find paying gigs like this for music, you know. But maybe one day.
Yeah, I know it's tough for creators. That's why I'm most thankful that I can actually make a living doing this, because I know it's so many people. I mean, I just got lucky, you know, that what I created people enjoyed. Yeah, it's tough. That's all I could say. Yeah, people assumed that I was always in Japan. Actually, I was always in Japan. Like, generally, I'd visit Canada, um, before the pandemic, of course, like maybe a month out of the year, and Japan 11 months out of the year. So now it's going to be Japan maybe 3-4 months out of the year, then Canada the rest of the time is how it's going to go. And in case anybody's wondering, I always feel like when I say that, like people are wondering, like, how do you have two homes in both countries? Well, I don't have two homes in both countries. I do have a home in Japan, but in Canada, we're just staying with relatives. So there's no way I could afford the maintaining two households in both countries. I'm not that kind of YouTuber with that kind of cash. You were just staying, with relatives, and yeah, because the Vancouver rental market is insane, and especially for a whole family. So yeah, just extremely privileged, I guess, to tell the truth. Okay. Someone was asking Carlo about how you develop the soundtracks for Ainu, Zainichi Koreans, Nikkei Brazilians.
Oh, okay. Ainu? That was one of the first tracks I sent you. That's the Bye Baba track.
Right, yeah.
That one, that's just maybe my favorite kind of music to make, is just like extremely ambient. That's just like huge Brian Eno influence, I think. Are you familiar with Brian Eno?
I know the name. I kind of feel like is that Beach Boys related or not at all?
No.
What is he with?
He's he's a producer. He produced like lots of U2 albums and
U2. Okay, I know it's a big band.
He's produced albums for like everyone over the years. But like back in the 70s, he started experimenting with like background music, and basically the term ambient music was like, I don't know if he coined it, but it came from his original works. Like Music for Airports was one of his first albums, and basically just like from there, like he worked with a lot of people, and a lot of people like kind of were super influenced by his music. So like that Bye Baba Ainu track especially is like hugely influenced by his work. And then Zainichi Korean one, I don't know, that's just like we needed something that was kind of moody but kind of had some momentum to it, and I guess that's just what we came up with. And the Nikkei Brazilian one, I just, for some reason, I associate like a lot of like drums and hand drumming and stuff with Brazil for some reason. I don't know why. And maybe it just felt like to introduce that new section just needed some momentum and energy, so came up with that track that way.
Okay. Some moving questions and stuff that I can answer. Yeah, the plan is to be back in Japan. Like, I still own the home in Japan, so if I wasn't planning on moving back, I wouldn't still own the place. So yeah, that's the plan. But just for the kids, again, the plan from a long time ago with my family was to finish off high school in Canada, so that the kids can get the education. It's not only the English component, it's also the cultural thing, family, but also it's like the way of thinking, the way of doing things, and seeing what my nieces and nephews go through, interviewing people about working in Japan, talking to a lot of different people. I mean, the way of thinking in Japan is, in some ways, they're different than what Canadians think. I think Japan, a lot more planning, a lot more risk averse. I think Canadians are more like go with the flow. Oh, you want to do this? Just do it this way, do it that way. Like they can just, roll with the punches kind of thing. Maybe they don't plan so much. So I think both ways of thinking.
You just described my move next month. It was just very, let's move to another province, just like that.
Yeah, so I mean, I think if you combine both ways of thinking, you're going to end up better. So, that's a big thing. But yeah, but honestly, I personally love living in both countries. But like Japan, I lived for 8 years, and I think I hear some other people talk about like, oh, they kind of, I don't know, get bored of it or get sick of it, or they start finding all these problems with it. I don't know. There's so many things I want to do and explore. And I'm still working on my Japanese because I think that'll help me understand a lot more. Like I've been studying and I do, lessons in Japanese still over here in Canada. But I want to get a lot better at Japanese and just, be able to integrate a lot better. Yeah. Greg, you have a multicultural background family. Do you find it positive, negative in terms of your video making? Has your ethnicity ever stopped you from making videos you want to make? No, I don't think I've ever had any problems with my ethnicity and making videos or jobs or anything that I'm aware of. In terms of my video making, I mean, I probably wouldn't have made this documentary if I didn't have a, multicultural background, if I was mixed roots myself, because perhaps I wouldn't have thought about the question. I wouldn't have, understood what the interviewees were talking about, the struggles they had, because almost every single one in some way I can understand what they're talking about. Probably the only one was maybe language, because in Canada I just grew up speaking English, so I didn't have to struggle with my language like some people did, having to like change it. Although I had to go to Japan and like learn a different language, and I did go through French immersion, and all my schooling was in French, not English actually.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. But so I mean, it didn't hurt. It could only have helped having a multicultural background. Do I see Japan becoming more multicultural in 20 years? I would say yeah, because the number of foreign residents right now is like, at least before the pandemic times, it was like nearing around 3 million mark. And that was like a threefold increase versus like 20 years ago. I'm roughly saying these figures. But a lot of them are temporary. But it feels like when you hear people talking about when they were in Japan or in certain parts of Japan versus 20 years ago or 30 years ago, they're saying it's becoming a lot more multicultural. It's becoming more open. So I do see it being that way. Yeah. Greg, I hope you also make a documentary about the Japanese sense of community, gammon spirit, and related things. I would love to purchase that to show my community here in the Philippines. I'm making something about cleaning in Japan, or how Japan keeps clean. And that's going to touch on that a bit, because it needs the whole community to be involved to keep the streets clean. And there's, it's not like you just have one component, like you hire like the city workers to come and clean every week and that's how it keeps clean. Like there's like I think 6 or 7 different like components that I've identified, and that's just my personal feelings that I feel like you need them all to keep everything clean. But I'm going to be talking about like how Japan prepares for disasters, and so that'll be, I think, a lot of talk about that as well. I'm going to be doing Japan Sports Day, Undokai, and that's a lot of like team spirit going into that, working together. So I think it'll just be, I won't make one specifically about that topic, but throughout many different videos, you'll learn about different ways that Japanese collaborate together and come on together. Let's see here. Do you listen to any Japanese pop music, Carlos?
New music, new Japanese music. Not really. I don't really know what to look for. I don't know what's good. There's a few bands that I listen to that are current, but I don't know. Lately, I've been listening to a band called The Tempters, but they're from like the 60s in Japan. And I actually, when I visited Japan a couple years ago, I was in a ramen shop, and the chef, the cook, was like the coolest guy, and he put a CD on, and I had to like Shazam it. Luckily, it showed up on my thing, and I found out later he put it on because one of the members had like died that day or something. So I've been listening to that. I don't know. I love digging for like weird old Japanese albums that are like beloved and cult favorites. That's kind of what I'm into.
Yeah, I'm probably more mainstream with my listening, and I think more recently I get it off of Aiko. She shows me, different music, and I listen together. But we listen to both Japanese music and I guess Western music or English music and K-pop and stuff like, music from around the world. But actually, just yesterday or 2 days ago, we were listening to K-pop. I'm like, oh, this is like from some rap songs I know. And then I was going through the history of rap like 30 years back and showing her. And she's like, oh, okay, I recognize this sound. I recognize this sound. And because K-pop, they're just doing a mashup of all these different styles and making it like K-pop, right. Which is it's a cool style. But they definitely got influences from a lot of different places. But it's cool that Aiko like is into like learning the history of the music and seeing where it comes from. Yeah. I think maybe Aiko's favorite band right now or group is YOASOBI. Do you know YOASOBI?
Yeah, a little bit, just a little.
Yeah. They're I like their music. It's kind of, I like it. It's cool.
Cool.
And it only got popular, I don't know, it was a year or two ago or something, but the singer for that, she's fairly young. I think she's like only 18 or 19, Ikura. Wow. And the producer guy, I don't know how the guy who makes all the music. I don't know how old he is, but anyways, they're fairly new, and yeah, the music's cool.
I have a question for you. I don't really know about your music taste. Or did you grow up listening to rap and hip hop?
I listened to a lot of things. I was also in a what do you call it, like orchestra band, symphony band. Cool. Yeah. So I played euphonium.
Euphonium? I don't even know what that is.
What? You don't even know what that is? Come on.
Is it? No, that's a harmonium where you're like...
No, okay. Euphonium looks like a small tuba, like a mini tuba.
Okay.
But it sounds like a combination of a trombone, so it's very loud and powerful brass, but it has kind of like the melody of like and like sweetness of like a French horn.
Oh,
so if you combine a French horn and a trombone, it's like...
I'm embarrassed. I've never heard of it.
Yeah, I played euphonium all throughout high school, and then in jazz band I played trombone. Cool. Yeah, but now I really suck at it because it's been like a couple decades. But yeah, hip hop I really liked it because I don't know, like I grew up below the poverty line for a little bit of my time.
Okay.
And like they're always talking about like struggling in a lot of hip hop music, so I kind of like I definitely wasn't like the same situation whatsoever, but like kind of like that spirit of like being the underdog and stuff, and like I don't know, it energized me. Or
I really love 90s hip hop. I was considering wearing my Ice Cube t-shirt today.
Yeah, but yeah. I was going through the soundtracks and stuff, and so we listened to the clean versions with Aiko. But yeah, there's a lot of explicit lyrics in the hip hop, and I never took the lyrics, like certain lyrics too, like very literally. Like I knew like they're just telling, sometimes like making up stories and bragging and stuff like that. Yeah. But I don't know, even just the sound I enjoyed. But I listened to a lot of different types of music too, like. I don't know. There's too many to name.
I know. Right when you're put on the spot like that.
Yeah, I'd have to make a list. People ask like, "What music do you like?" All right. So I'm starting to lag behind on all these questions here. This one's documentary related. At what stage of the movie development production did Carl start making music?
Well,
I'd say
I guess
about half.
When I sent you those first like 20 tracks or whatever, at what point were you at?
That was in 2020 in March, I think.
That was right after COVID started, I think.
Yeah. So that was like March 2020-ish, something like that, or maybe right in April is when you actually sent it. But
April, I think.
It has March on the file folder, but I sent you something probably December 2019. Then a cut, if there's that long ago.
Yeah, it's
weird.
I sent you 20 tracks. Just based on our emails. I hadn't seen any footage, and we hadn't actually talk to like video chat or anything,
Mm-hmm.
just to see if there was anything like a good starting point that we both felt good about, and maybe a couple tracks worked.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, let's see here. It's interesting that Canada doesn't require you to have a permanent address listed for nationals to attend school locally. Well, I mean, I do. I mean, when I'm in Canada, I have an address, and we're citizens. So my kids and myself are Canadian citizens, and my wife's a permanent resident. And then when you go to Japan, it's my wife and kids who are Japanese citizens, and I'm the permanent resident. So, because my kids are dual nationals. So, once you move to the country, so officially we've moved to Canada, but I guess, and we'll be visiting Japan, a few months out of the year. So that's kind of how it works. We considered international schools in Japan, but international schools, they're too expensive, actually, first of all. So that's probably like close case. That's it.
Yeah.
It's just too expensive to go to international school, but I still think the experience would be a lot different. So let's see here. Oh, thanks for watching Being Japanese, Frorath. Who did the artwork for the documentary cover poster? Yeah, his name's Roland. He lives in Hungary. I can't pronounce his last name, but yeah, that's the poster back there. I did it on a canvas at Costco, and it's actually pretty cheap to get for the size you get. It's like $90 to get that Canadian. So I was pretty happy with it. I really love the poster. And he's actually helping me with some of the thumbnails. So the thumbnail for the What Japanese Really Eat for Breakfast video, he made that one, and he's making some templates for me for future videos and some past ones. So you'll see some different thumbnail design coming soon. Yeah, so I mean, just kind of addressing the move question a little bit, because I don't know what point people join or not. So we've officially moved back to Canada, but I'll be back in Japan 3-4 months out of the year. That's before the pandemic hit plan. So I'll be back again this year to Japan, as long as it's safe to do so. That's the big thing, right? But we're both, fully vaccinated right now, and my whole family's vaccinated. And family in Japan they get in their vaccinations now. So hopefully when everything's vaccinated up, and as long as, new variants don't go crazy, the plan is to always go to Japan for about a month or so, film, and then come back to Canada for a couple months, edit and stuff, and then go back to Japan, film for a month. I'm also working with my sister-in-law, where she's going to be filming things in Japan too, and doing things. And so if you saw what Japanese Really Eat for Breakfast, she filmed, I think, like half of the things in that video. So I'm really happy that people enjoyed that video, because that means, okay, I can kind of not always be there, but still get footage from there. But I mean, a lot of things that I feel like I have to be there to see and know in order to know what to talk about, what to film, or what to ask someone to film. But before the move to Canada, I have 10 videos already filmed.
That's good.
So I just have to edit them all. So by the time I finish editing them, I will hopefully be able to go back to Japan, and then just keep the process up. Let's see here. How many languages do you speak, Greg? 3. French, English, and Japanese. And I don't know, it's weird because my French should be a lot better than my Japanese. Listening French, I'm better, but speaking, maybe Japanese I'd be a little better to speak right now, just because anytime I try to speak my French, Japanese just comes out my mouth. I kind of can't remember the vocabulary, but I'm sure if I studied French for a month or two, I'd be much stronger in French, because I learned it from 5 years old until 18. So and yes, I'm in Canada right now. Carlo, sounds like you like to move around and see different places of Canada world. Do you find it helpful in terms of your artistic creations?
Well, I lived in or near Toronto for most of my life until a year ago. We moved across the country to Vancouver, and that was great. I guess actually when I lived in Toronto, I went to Japan for 2.5 weeks, and that was great. Like creatively, artistically, like I just wanted to get home, like feeling so inspired. But moving to Vancouver here, I feel like, yeah, trying to get some freelance work and just like tackling every little bit of work I could. I just felt like really, I don't know, energized and like ambitious to like do well here. And moving to Canmore, that's my girlfriend and I. We love that place so much. It's a small town, just surrounded by mountains, and we can't wait to move there. We feel so happy and inspired there. So, yeah, I would say moving to different places like definitely helps. You always feel reinvigorated every time you move, right?
Yeah, Kenmore is awesome. I used to go cross country skiing with my family there.
Nice.
Um, and I was there visiting a couple of years ago too when we were back in Canada. Yeah, it's a gorgeous spot.
Cross country skiing. I didn't even think
Yeah,
of
I
that
mean,
word.
I love down. I used to downhill ski until I got snowboard, then I snowboarded.
Right.
So I'm a big snowboarder. And then, but when I was growing up, that was too expensive
Yeah.
to do, so I couldn't afford that. And we're living in Manitoba, so it's flat, so you don't really have any hills. So cross country ski. So when I first went to Canmore, I got skate skis.
Okay.
My dad bought me some skate skis because they were on sale in the springtime, and it was so awesome because you can actually go fast skate skiing because it's more like skating, right? Than the back and forth with cross country skiing. And they had like hills and mountains, like you're in the. It was so fun.
I'm gonna look into that.
But I mean, I still love like snowboarding better, I would say. But cross country skiing, if you have to do it, Canmore is a really great place, and skate skiing is pretty awesome. Yeah. Okay, what is Aiko's favorite K-pop group? We were listening to Blackpink when I went through the rap history with her, so I don't know what her favorite K-pop is. I know there's a one that's kind of like K-pop and some J-pop. Like they have multiple, and maybe some people from Taiwan as well. I think they're called Twice. Yeah. Because you talked about Canmore already, kind of. Da, 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 da. Also, why no top? Okay, so just to explain the move, we moved in May of this year, so we haven't been in Canada for that long. And it was a crazy time moving. Maybe one day, I don't know. I kind of don't want to make it like the experience of moving during a pandemic. I think it was just really stressful, and it wasn't like we didn't. It was just time because of the school years and how they work, and it was planned like in advance for quite a long time. So I definitely did not want to move during a pandemic. It just happened to be, and it was really tough to do. So do not want to repeat that again. I probably will make some Canadian topics, but they have to be quite unique stories, because if you just do like what everyday life in Canada is, there's too many people in the West that already know what it's like, so I don't think they're that interested. And based on the past history of previous videos I made about Canada, like people aren't as interested, right? But when I visited other countries, like when I was in Philippines or South Korea, people enjoyed those videos because I guess they're different enough from Western culture that, yeah, people enjoyed seeing like the daily life there. So, I mean, in the ideal world, like my plans without the pandemic was that I was going to visit a whole bunch of other different countries and kind of get together with locals and have them show me what their life is like and make videos about that. Right now with the pandemic, who knows? It's just kind of going to be Japan, Canada, mostly. But there are some things like I'm doing a video right now about what a typical neighborhood in Tokyo is like in Japan, and I'll be doing some other like based on urban planning about Japan, like zoning and stuff, and how people, yeah, about housing in Japan, essentially neighborhoods in Japan. And so then I want to bring back that idea to Canada. It's like, so what happens if you adopted some Japanese ideas in Canada? What would that look like? What would change, or would that be a good idea? And so I want to interview like people who are into urban planning, like professors and maybe some policy people and some actual urban planners, and kind of explore that idea. I think it'd be pretty interesting.
That sounds cool.
Yeah, so I probably will do some, but it'll probably be in like maybe 10% of the videos or something. Pretty low number, I would say, would be Canadian related. Okay. Yoasobi K-pop. Oh, no, Yoasobi's not K-pop. Sorry, they're J-pop. Right. K-pop is, yeah, totally. Yosobi is definitely Japanese, as far as I know. Um, let's see here. For the last year and a half, blah blah blah. Okay. Do you plan to make more? Okay, I already answered that. Where are the kitties, Greg? They're with us. They're just not in this room, but sometimes they come up here. But yeah, they're definitely here, and we have a backyard, so they go play around the backyard with the harness and stuff, and they're loving it. So that was the one really positive thing about coming to Canada is the cats can enjoy
Yeah.
the grass, because we have no grass in our Japanese home. Yeah. Okay. I guess if you want to ask Carlo about his charging for songs and stuff, we'll probably just message him. Can they contact you through the Bandcamp link at all?
Yeah, I'm sure there's an email address.
Okay, so just go to the link and then contact him, and then he can talk to you privately about that. What are your thoughts on the Canadian housing market? It's nuts. It's completely nuts. Completely unaffordable. You have to be making incredible amounts of money and probably like a dual income even, and still you probably have to get money from like your parents or grandparents or something,
and only then you can get a 1-bedroom condo
or something. It's just
it's out of
stupid
control. Yeah.
So I mean, if anything I would do in another life would be kind of trying to change the housing policy in Canada, but maybe I'll try to affect it by making some videos maybe and get people to think differently about housing. But I think it's a hard battle, because I think Canadians, I mean, at least, I don't know, Carl, maybe you can tell me about this, but when I was growing up, it's kind of like I always thought your goal is to get a house with a backyard and have a car or two, and that was kind of what I always felt was going to happen. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I was kind of the same way, because that's what my parents were all about, and they still are, and they have their house and their 2 cars and 3 kids and all that stuff. But I don't know, I think once I met my girlfriend, we've actually been together for like 10 years now, but she's like starting a hiking travel blog and all that kind of stuff, and like basically all we want to do is just like travel and hike and like enjoy life, because just heard too many stories about people who, as soon as they retire, like they work their whole lives and then suddenly they get sick, or they're too old, they can't enjoy everything they saved up for, and like that's it, you wasted your life. So hopefully we can just try to enjoy life a little bit now rather than wait to enjoy it later. That's kind of our viewpoint.
It's so tough, man. Like, what's funny? I don't want to go too much on a tangent about housing.
You're at 5%.
I'm at 5% battery. Oh my goodness. Okay, hold on 1 second. I can luckily replace this. Is my battery not charging enough? Hold on. 1 sec. Where's this? Oh no. Did I just cut the wrong cord? I think you can still hopefully hear us even if the thing goes black for a second here. Let me just get another battery while you entertain the people.
I wish I brought my guitar. Okay.
I guess that charge is not doing enough. Okay, so let's swap this out, and maybe it'll still be on.
Heavy metal scene in Tokyo. There are some great bars. Yeah, I like a lot of the Japanese heavy metal. What else?
Okay.
Oh, you have some good questions now.
Yeah, sorry, it's gone black, but we were still there. So that was my quick unplugging of the camera by accident. So, yeah.
It just switched to the alternate camera. That's good.
Oh, really? Okay. No, that's just me plugging back in. Okay. Okay, I won't talk too much more about the housing. I'll just keep it to like 2 or 3 minutes. But I'm really into the housing topic right now, because I was looking at it in Japan, and it's one of the big reasons we bought in Japan, because I cannot afford in Canada. But I had the opportunity, I think about 18, 17 years ago, where I was gonna get a small loan, like like $20,000 or $30,000 from our Japanese in-laws
Okay.
to get into like a, I don't know, around $300,000 condo or something, and I thought that was crazy.
Here?
Yeah,
Okay.
but it was like a 3-bedroom or like a townhouse kind of condo, right?
Yeah.
So you could raise a family in there, but I was used to Winnipeg prices where it was like 100,000 for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's crazy. Like, it's too risky. Like everybody says that, like at that time, they're saying that the bubble's going to crash in Vancouver.
Mhm.
So I'm like, I don't want to be too risky. I want to be smart financially. And I didn't get a house back then. But now that place has got to be worth over $1 million,
I know.
I'd be a millionaire, essentially. Really. And I would have been able, by this time, to have almost paid it off completely. So I really would be a on paper millionaire, a house millionaire.
I know.
So
You can't think that way because there's a lot of
no,
stuff
I have no regrets, but it's just funny how that works, And I've had family who were able to get in the market because they're a little bit older than me, and they got into the market and they're okay. But I just feel so bad for people coming up in their 20s or 30s, and you have to be so rich to afford it. Something's drastically wrong. So,
Yeah.
my big idea right now is that, Canada should adopt a zoning system that is closer to Japan. And basically, the thing about Canadian zoning system, and this is true for the United States as well, is that in most places you're single family housing, right? So you just have one house on one lot, and your lot has to be a certain amount of size. That's like the standard for say 80% or 90%, like a really high number of places. Like you can only have housing. You can't even have like businesses in there. You can't have like a 2-story apartment or 3-story apartment. You can just have a single family house. And then, so even if there's lots of room, you can't just put more housing in there. It's illegal.
Yeah.
And if you want to redevelop and rezone it, you're gonna have people go to like a city council meeting and say like, no, I don't want this like apartment block in my in my neighborhood, or I don't want someone to run a business out of their home in my neighborhood. Because you can get exceptions, but if you flip it, where like in Tokyo, and I'll show in the Tokyo neighborhoods video, and I'll make another video about Tokyo zoning and zoning in Japan, is by default you are pretty much allowed to have mixed use, which means I could run a business where customers come to my house in Canada without like getting approval or special approval. Like it's just allowed. You can run like a little restaurant on the bottom of your floor and then have whatever on top, or you can run a design studio or whatever you want. Hair salon, anything. You can just do that in any place. And then for land, they just have a very simple set of rules. It's like you need a 6 feet or 2 meter frontage. So 2 meters is like, as much as I can like stretch my arms kind of. As long as you have that amount of access to the property, you can have this like little like slice. Well, let's see how it goes here. So it goes like this, and then you can have your property out like this. So you can have like a really like narrow like walking path and then get back to your property behind it. So you can slice and dice up the land however you want. You just have to follow like basic, leave enough light for your neighbors that are south facing. So they need like 6 hours of light. And you need 2 meters of frontage. You don't need any parking.
Okay.
And street parking is not like a right there or something that's expected. If you want parking, you either have to have it built into like in your house, or have enough property to have parking there, or else you rent a parking spot, or you don't own a car, right?
Right.
So it's a very different way of thinking. I don't think Canadians, they can just put it through their heads. Like, there's too many people who say, well, like, you can't have this happen because of this and that. And there needs to be a lot of structural changes, too, because you need to have the transit to support it, like the public transit to support it as well. And, yeah, I don't really ever think it would happen in Canada, but I want to do, like, what-if scenarios, because I definitely think if you had more dense housing, like single-family housing, like, if you took my house in Canada, or in Japan, and moved it to Canada on this lot, I think you can get 10 of my houses in the lot my dad's house is on. So it's kind of ridiculous,
Yeah.
that you can, fit 10 families in a place where I guess now it's 2 families because the house is big enough. But yeah, that's my zoning neighborhood planning, urban planning sidetrack. Sorry. Okay, let's go back. We talked about musicians already. Talked about kitty cats. Urban planner person. Um, let's see. Uh, Vegan cat mom. I'm an urban planner, Greg. I had master's student do her thesis on what uh, Indianapolis, Indiana, right? Yeah, would be like if you apply Japanese zoning to it. Oh, that's super cool. I wonder if you can like send me something, vegan cat mom. I'm sure it's pretty easy to contact me. Like if you, you should be able to get in touch with me. There's so many different ways to get in touch with me. Try to send me an email or a message through the website lifefarmhum.com, and I'd be super interested in knowing what you came up with or what your student came up with. Yeah. Would you consider doing a video about LGBTQ plus spaces in Tokyo? That's if I have somebody in that community that could, talk about it, because I don't know enough to talk about it. So I would if there's someone who would, yeah.
I think a lot of people are very like unfamiliar or uncomfortable with that topic. So I think someone like you approaching it and discovering yourself like what it's all about in Tokyo. I think you'd be like a good ambassador for that.
Well, I can interview the people that can, know what they're talking about to talk about it. Yeah, sure. Like, I've done that with several videos where you just interview people, the experts or people who know what they're talking, I don't have to put myself into the video. Welcome back to Vancouver, blah, blah, blah. Take them to Banff. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Have you ever thought about doing pieces on Ainu or other indigenous groups in Japan? I did a video about Ainu. It's on there. So check the video history. Will I do more? Maybe. I think I'm gonna probably focus more on Okinawa, because I filmed a whole bunch of stuff in Okinawa that I never put into the documentary. So I have probably 2 videos out there, and there's a few more things I wanted to talk about, because Okinawa is just so different from the rest of Japan. It really surprised me. Whereas in Hokkaido, there were never that many Ainu to start off with. Like, from the numbers I was hearing, it was around like 25,000 Ainu, But the population of Hokkaido now, it's got to be a few million, I think. So there's such a small percentage nowadays. So it doesn't look terribly different to me when I was going around the communities. Whereas Okinawa in general just looks very different, and depending on which islands you go to as well. So there's a lot more differences to explore, I think. So yeah, I guess. But the Okinawa people, the Ryukyuans, they were separate from Japan for most of their history. So I think it's very interesting. Okay. Yep. Let's see here. Zoning stuff, people agreeing. The missing middle, the missing middle is definitely, about here, and he is a YouTube guy, and he's Vancouver based, or Lower Mainland based, about here.
Okay.
And he did a video about the missing middle. There's Not Just Bikes, which is a Canadian. He lives in the Netherlands, and he talks a lot about urban planning and stuff. And there's City Beautiful. There's a lot of urban planning YouTube channels that I follow, and there's definitely a missing middle. Actually, speaking of like indigenous people, I do want to do a video about the indigenous people in Canada, and it's because there was actually one of my supporters for the documentary. He lived on a reserve in Quebec, and he was telling me about his life living there, and it was just so fascinating. Things I did not know, and going through the Canadian education system, living in Canada, I had no clue about these things. Yeah. Like, he still has a card that said like Indian card, right? And I guess we've been taught for a long time like Indian is a bad word to use. Yeah. But amongst himself and his family, and his people, they refer to themselves as Indians, because that's what they've been called for such a long time. Like, that's what they're used to. And he actually has an Indian card though, which I was like, oh my, I didn't know. Like, but like I like the PC word when I was growing up was Aboriginal.
Yeah, yeah.
And now the catch-all word is indigenous, as far as I know.
Mhm.
But it depends on where you go and what you do. Like there are better words or better names, and
Yeah.
you know.
My old boss's wife actually has a PhD in like First Nations art or whatever, and she's like gone around the world curating
Yeah.
Canadian First Nations artists. So
Yeah.
yeah, if you need to talk to someone in Ontario about that stuff, I know
I think
somebody.
there's a lot of people obviously in Canada that, yeah, but for sure that we
Mhm.
could talk to. But I kind of want to do is like what it's like living, on a reserve in Canada, or like, being, First Nations or Indigenous, or I think it'd be really eye-opening for Canadians, but for the rest of the world as well. So that's one Canadian piece that I would love to do. Thank you, Mr. John Michael, for the support there. Super chat. What is the process like to move to Japan, though? Your question is like a crazy long question, so I don't think I can actually answer that in this. And
Maybe
mine,
what was the hardest part about moving?
well, because we had family in Japan, they had like all their secondhand stuff to give to us and all that things. But personally, for me, is obviously like just the culture and the language.
Hmm.
Like for me in Canada, if I want to set up a bank account, or if I want to, register for the healthcare system or do things, like I can just do that all on my own.
Right,
Might be frustrating
right.
sometimes, but I can do it on my own. Whereas when I first moved to Japan, like we switched roles where I was doing that in Canada, whereas my wife was doing all that in Japan.
Hmm.
And so you kind of feel like a child or like powerless a bit. So
I've heard that many times. Yeah.
yeah.
You lose that just freedom, basically, right?
So going back to Canada, it's nice just to be able to quickly get back to people and like, chat in certain ways.
Mm-hmm.
Things don't always go the way you want, but at least now I know how to navigate the system a lot better in Canada than Japan.
Yeah.
Although I'm got better at the Japanese side of stuff, but I can survive now in Japan. But yeah, does the camera get hot? Yeah, it does, but it's the A7S III, so it's okay. If it was my A7S II, it probably would have overheated by now. Okay. I don't even know where I am in this chat anymore. Canadian PR machine is going strong. No, I mean, we're both Canadian, right? So, I personally love living. I love Canada. I love being Canadian. I love living in Canada. I also love living in Japan as well. So, I love both things. But I mean, I think the housing in Canada sucks. So I'll put that out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard for people to survive right now because of the housing. And I think if there was better housing, I think it'd be a lot better. But yeah. Okay. Let's see here. I'm trying to scroll down, but sometimes when I'm scrolling, things disappear and stuff. Do I ever use those water bottle refill stations in Tokyo? How were they if you did? I don't think they had too many in Tokyo, but I always use at the parks and at stations too. They just have regular taps and the water's excellent.
Is it like one you'd find at a gym or something, like filtered water?
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is like that. You put your bottle, in the machine, and it just automatically fills up. They have a few at the airports and stuff, I noticed, but in most places in Japan, they just have like a regular water fountain. And I just fill up using the water, and it's fantastic. So, I mean, that's how I do it all the time with my water bottle. Carlo, top 3 favorite musicians recently, or at least recently? That's hard.
I would say probably my favorite band of all time is early 90s band My Bloody Valentine. It's like very noisy and ethereal shoegaze rock. That's probably top. And then after that, probably, I don't know, probably some video game soundtracks or something. I especially love Final Fantasy 6 and 8, but like when they're kind of reinterpreted for piano, it's just like perfect. That's my favorite.
I wanted to see one of those. Did they have like a Final Fantasy concert?
Yeah,
that'd have been so epic.
I wish I could see something like that for sure. Yeah.
I like.
Did you like those games? Did you?
Yeah. No, I grew up playing them like on the NES.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah. Although, like, just as I got older, I stopped playing video games because I just don't have the time to do it, and
I
and
know.
because I'm on the screen all the time. I kind of want to get away from the screen, so I'd rather go for a run than play a video game right now,
Yeah, that's
or go
where
for a
I'm.
hike or
That's
something.
where I'm kind of at too.
Yeah. But Kimi no Nawa, have you seen that? Your Name?
Oh, you know what? Oh no, I started watching it.
What?
I know,
You
I know.
haven't? I love that.
I know. I heard it's incredible.
That's one of my
But
favorite.
that guy's movies, I really
And I
like.
mean, yeah, I watched all his movies. Yeah, the other previous ones. But yeah, I
Mhm.
really like Kimi no Nawa, and they did a live playing
Oh,
of the
cool.
soundtrack.
Okay, I'll
You
try to
know,
watch
and
that
it's on
right away.
YouTube actually, which is cool. Sometimes you don't have a lot of stuff on YouTube, but especially Japanese
Hmm.
things they tend to restrict. But they have like the the whole orchestra playing with the the anime
The
in the
movie play.
background,
Yeah.
and it was like I wish I could have been there, and I probably was actually in the city at the time they're playing. I just didn't know it existed, and probably couldn't have got tickets anyways.
Oh, that's so cool.
But I would have loved to be in there.
Are you familiar with New Jabez? New Jabbies? He's
No.
like a Japanese hip hop producer, and he kind of started that whole hip hop jazz mashup genre, but like 10, 15 years ago. And he died in a car crash in
Oh,
Tokyo like a long time ago. But one of his collaborators who like raps on his albums, his name is Shingo too. And I was supposed to see him on a Tuesday, right before like COVID closed everything down on Monday. And I was looking forward to that show for so long, and
oh.
it got canceled. So
That's the
New
story of
Job
so
is that
many.
that guy's another favorite for sure. Probably top 5.
Right. Okay. Yeah, Allison, I am doing what Japanese really eat for lunch and dinner. So, totally. And there's a lot of different ideas we have for that. So, there's gonna be a lot of what really stuff. It's gonna be a whole series. Let's see here. What reserve life is like? You'd be interested in seeing that? Yeah. Yeah. Access is the thing because I don't know how it works because of course, you know, there's a difference between being able to do it but being able to do it respectfully,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, for sure.
So um yeah, like I could go on and go around with someone and go around the reserve and film. Like I think I'm legally able to do that, but I don't think that's the right move to not talk to the community and be able to do that. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it'd be tough because some things are just interesting things, but some things are more mm, I don't know. You got to talk about the good and the bad and stuff. And so, do people want to talk about that, or maybe they do want people to know,
Yeah.
the good things and the bad things. So, like everything. So, yeah, we'll see. Da, 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 da. Yeah, okay. How long did it take for me to learn Japanese? I'm still learning. That's the thing. That's
Hard,
the
man.
huge thing. I would say. Like I made a whole video about learning Japanese.
Oh, it's so hard. I studied for like a year when I first moved to Toronto like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And then I stopped, and then I studied. I like crammed before I went on my trip just so I could get by. And
Yeah.
then, yeah. I mostly have forgotten.
I mean, I learned some, what I found, it's not like other skills. So
Mhm.
like you can learn to play a sport in like 5 hours or 10 hours and be like at a base level to
Yeah.
do it, right? Or you can even like learn to play an instrument and be like at a basic level, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's 50 hours or 100 hours,
Yeah.
right? Um, I learned how to like, code for websites, and I did that in like one day with like, some guy tutored me. And then after
Mhm.
that I can like go on my own and start like writing things and like just take tutorials and learn more and do things. And same for a lot of skills, but for language, the amount of input you need, the amount of time
Mhm.
studying, especially coming from English to Japanese,
Yeah.
it's incredible. Like thousands and thousands and thousands, and even after a few thousand, you're still not even close. You're just basic, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and you need to constantly do it, or you start losing it as
It's
well.
it's not like riding a bike.
Yeah,
You
no,
forget.
no, 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 it's not. Or not like doing snowboarding either. Like
Yeah.
I'd go a year without snowboarding, or 2 years at one point, I think. And then, it takes me like half a day. And then I'm not as good as I was 2 years ago, but, if I
It
spend a
comes
week or
back.
two at it, like
Yeah.
I'd be getting close to like, 90% level. But
Yeah.
no, language, you got to do it a lot.
Yeah, it's-
Let's see here. Final Fantasy 7 soundtrack underrated. Final Fantasy, Carlo. Yeah, I guess we established we're not really gamers anymore, right?
I play Binding of Isaac now. That's about it.
Yeah, actually, we got a virtual reality system, my kids and I, and we were playing Rec Room, and playing the paintball game. That's fun because it's like it's not a first person shooter. Because first person shooter, like those people are so freaking good.
Yeah.
And you just step out and you're like dead. And you're like, oh, like you can't just pick up and play and do well in a first person shooter.
What's the game called?
Rec Room.
Oh, okay.
But it's like kind of a social thing, and it's like has a paintball game, and I can find that I can actually hold my own playing the paintball game because the speed of like how the paint flows and the rate of fire and they're like I mean, there are some pretty good people who could just like slaughter you.
Yeah.
But in general, like I feel like I can be like average in that at least, so it's fun. And my kids can play too and do okay as well. So yeah, paintball, Rec Room for like just jumping in and playing for a little bit is fun.
Here come the gaming questions.
Yeah, but I was playing Cyberpunk a little bit.
Yeah, I never got a chance to play that.
Yeah, and I think I was doing one of the Final Fantasy. Oh, I did get the Final Fantasy 7 remake, so I played like halfway through that. But just it's always like I feel like you have to kind of really get into it and like.
Yeah, I love RPGs, but it's so hard to find time to get into.
Yeah, if I had a lot of time, I would play RPGs. I don't, and I don't find it. I want to get off screens to relax, which is the thing. Or I don't want to be interacting. Like I want to kind of shut my mind off a bit. And so if I do watch a screen to relax, it'll be like movies and TV shows. Which DAW are you using?
Oh, I use Reaper too. I love it. It's by the guy that made Winamp years ago, and it's very affordable and it's very customizable and it's very light on your system. It's great. I love it.
Yeah. I have no clue about that stuff. But I use an Audient i4 to capture my voiceovers.
Oh my god, I'm getting hungry.
You're getting hungry. Yeah, we'll have to. Yeah, we'll wrap this up in like 5 minutes or so.
I love the Fallout games too, and those soundtracks are really great.
Yeah.
The like in-game like cinematic music, but also those old like 50s, 40s songs that they use are just like great stuff.
Yeah. Well, there was a question about where was it? Oh, the education one, right? Education system K to 12. I did one about I guess before kindergarten, or around the same age for the daycares or Hoikuen system. I really want to do something for the high school entrance exams, and that'd be pretty deep to get into that. And I wanted to be able to follow kids around for like a year and see the process. I didn't do that with my family members, but it's just so foreign to me. Like, do you know anything about the getting into high school in Japan?
No.
So, I mean, I'm gonna just say from the Tokyo-based experience because it might be a little bit different in other parts of Japan. But essentially, once high school is not mandatory in Japan, right? So once you graduate from middle school, it's optional. But the graduation rates are really high in Japan, so I think they're still higher than Canada, even though high school is mandatory in Canada, right? So most kids go to high school. But there's a public system and a private system.
Okay.
And in elementary school, the ratio of public to private isn't very, like it's mostly public. Almost all kids go to public, right? And like I think it's in the high 90s or something. But once you get by the time you get to high school, the numbers change a lot where there's a bigger mix of private and public. And you basically have to write exams to get into these schools. And you have to choose which schools you want to get into. And you can choose public school and private school, or you can do both. And it's this whole system. And I don't completely understand it. Like, and after many, many talks with my wife and daughter and people and reading online and hearing from my niece and nephews, it's still, I don't quite 100% understand it.
Yeah.
But it's complex and there's a lot of pressure on kids to getting to the school, because it's kind of like deciding their life is what it feels like. It's like kind of the pressure for university.
Yeah, but the pressure here for university starts like grade 11.
Yeah,
usually, but
I think so.
It starts for them way earlier, right?
I would think so. Maybe for some parents they might pressure their kids earlier, but like with my parents, I mean, they never said anything to me as far as I know about university. Like I just my brothers went to university. I just planned to go to university, and I just went. I don't know. It wasn't a big deal, but over here I find like with my kids, like just talking about incessantly and talking about like doing cram schools and JUCO and writing these exams. And I know when my niece and nephew, like when they're trying to get into the schools they wanted to, it was like so emotional for them. Like it was like really like end of the world type of stuff. This is deciding your whole future. And I do not like the pressure on kids, because knowing how I went through university and changed careers many times. And having the flexibility to do so, and people having the attitude like, oh yeah, you can just start something new, that's great for you, like good stuff, and people being encouraging and supporting of you. I don't think it's quite that way in Japan. So, and that's part of why I want my kids to go through Canadian system, to realize that like you can be many things and you can still switch things up.
That's right.
And you can fail, and that's okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure 90% of the people I know, they don't do what they went to school for here in Canada.
Yeah, no, like I mean, I actually went to engineering right out of high school. I went into engineering, found out it wasn't for me. I just wanted to create things, so I went into business actually, because I figured like you need to like sell your stuff if you're gonna create things. But I don't really like business. I found out like I like being creative. I don't like the business side of things.
Yeah.
But you need to know some business stuff in order to be successful creatively as well.
Yeah, I wish my business side was better.
But business school I went to, they only taught me like middle management stuff, not like small business entrepreneurial stuff. So I learned it mostly just by doing.
Yeah.
So, and video, I never trained for video, but that's what I do as a profession. So there you go.
Some things are just easy to pick up by doing them, right?
Yeah. This person, Vegan Cat Mom, was saying her favorite episodes are Cycle Through Tokyo and Japanese School Lunch. I mean, those actually...
That was a good one. I just watched that recently.
Which one?
The Japanese School Lunch episode.
I love that one. That's one of my highlights, because ever since I started making videos, I said, I want to do Kyushoku, the Japanese School Lunch. And I couldn't do it when I first got there, because to get into a school and film is very hard. You need to be like a news organization or have some pretty good contacts.
Oh, the woman in the kitchen was filming for you. Right?
Yeah. But by time I did that, I had enough, I don't know, presence on YouTube, or like history of making videos on YouTube, where I can say, yeah, I made some mini documentary type stuff. You can trust me to be in your school.
Right.
And so they trusted me to be in the school. But I also was volunteering at my kids' school. And so the principal for my kids' school was able to give me a recommendation letter to say like, yeah, this guy's legit. Like he's he's safe with the kids, like he's gonna be okay. So to be able to produce that, I was really, proud that I got to that level where they would trust me to do that. I can make videos like that, because I don't think, any random person just go in and make a video about that and put it on YouTube. So yeah. And the bike around Japan was Tokyo. I had so much fun.
I remember that too. I did like a 50K bike ride that day with my friend or something, and then I got home and yours was way farther than mine. And I don't think I even knew you back then, but I was like, oh man, you really put my bike ride to shame.
My bike ride was easy because I averaged out the pace of like 9 kilometers an hour or something, so it's easy to do over 100 kilometers when you're going that slow. But because you have to film, you just end up going slow. But that was fun, because that was like, partway through the pandemic, and it was one of the only activities I could do that was like safe to do. So I really enjoyed that Tokyo by bike. I plan on doing some more stuff like that. Skiing in Japan, I would love to do skiing in Japan, or snowboarding, or winter stuff. Actually I kind of like briefly met, and I think her name's Rei. It's so embarrassing I can't remember her name, but she's a really awesome snowboarder. I think she's still a teenager actually. She's so young, and she's doing like the big air. And I was at like a resort in Iwate up in the north in Tohoku, and she was just like killing it, doing these awesome jumps. I got to film a few. So it's in one of my videos about when I, talk about exploring Japan's north for the Olympics. And it'd be awesome. I wanted to kind of do like a day in the life of her, like how she snowboards and stuff. I think that'd be really cool. Yeah. Sierra in Tokyo. Did you see my comment about disabled video? No, I did not. So I don't know where it is. I do not see it. Sorry. Okay, just reading through some comments. I'm gonna pick one last thing to talk about here. Tighter shin. Yeah, people are like, we're having like, I'm looking at all the comments. So put your last comment. I'll pick the one that I want to talk about here. People are answering questions.
Yeah, Tokyo Lens is good too.
Yeah, I know Norm from Tokyo Lens. Cool. Yeah.
That guy's a cinematographer by trade, so his videos are beautiful.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I don't know when people were joining, so I think we should talk about music, because this is a music-focused thing.
Sure.
So we'll end up on, well, of course, Carlo made the music for Being Japanese documentary. You're hearing it right now in the background. And he made a soundtrack for it, so you can click on the link in the description, or right in front of, or copy down right in front of him. That's where you can listen to and buy the soundtrack. But also he made the music for What Japanese Really Eat for Breakfast, and I thought it was so cool that you can now I could tweak the tracks, the audio tracks, in a way that I could tweak video, like shorten it, elongate it, like do some effects on it, like change it around. So I thought it was such a cool process. And we talked about one future project, which is being the Being Japanese documentary, like the story of Joe and his life story. So we're gonna do work on that project. But if there's a type of project, it took me a long way to get to this question, but if there was like a project that you either wished you could have been on for one of my videos, or one that you want to make, what would it be?
That's a good question. I think the Being Japanese project was like perfect, at least a perfect starting point for us to start working together, because it was long and it was varied, like the sounds, the music, the genres that I touched on, like it was a little bit of everything. And so that was great. I couldn't really ask for anything better than that. But probably whenever I see like drone footage, I just want to like make majestic music for the really nice drone footage of whatever, beaches, forests, all that kind of stuff, water, mountains. Yeah.
Okay, so some kind of more travel, probably related video then. More scenic video.
More scenic. The more ambient music for more scenic videos. That's just like...
I had a kind of a scenic one for like the greener side of Tokyo, but there's no drones because you need special permission to do that. But
greener side of Tokyo. Okay, that's
because I wanted to show all the green spots in Tokyo.
Yeah,
everybody thinks it's a concrete jungle, but there's a lot of concrete. But there's some awesome green areas. Yeah. I kind of showed it in my Tokyo by Bike a bit, but I want to focus on that. But maybe if I do some traveling around different parts of Japan, and just it might be cool to kind of show the variety of landscapes, because that's the thing that amazes me about Japan, is because it's very long. I don't know if longitude or latitude, which one it is. But like from north to south, it's very, very long. I think almost like 3,000 kilometers. So the amount of like different geography you get and climates you get is huge in comparison to Canada, where, I mean, we do have the north, but I mean, essentially most of our experience is like close to the same 49th parallel,
It's like on the border, basically.
Yeah, it doesn't vary as much, I find. So, I mean, you get like subtropical with Okinawa, when you get more like Canada, like, Hokkaido, and you get the whole range in between. So highlighting the variety of
Oh.
landscapes.
Something in the snow too would be cool.
Yeah, like maybe it's like you know, I take some past footage and film some new stuff and
Yeah.
like kind of like, you know, Japan throughout the year kind of thing, you
Yeah.
know, the 4 seasons of Japan or something. I
That
don't
would be
know.
cool. Something with a little more, I don't know.
And maybe I don't talk. Maybe just
something
like
that just breathes
show
a
stuff.
little bit and
Yeah,
a little more.
maybe we could do that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that is it. Carlo, you have a soothing voice, so maybe
Oh, thanks.
you can do some.
I hate my voice, but that's nice. Yeah.
I like no one talked about my voice whatsoever. You can just tell them. So Greg's voice is harsh. Carlos is smooth.
They hear your voice all the time. I'm sure they've told you in the past.
Yeah. So I'll get you to do narrations for me in the future then. Yeah.
Oh, maybe. I don't know.
All right. I guess we'll wrap it up. So thanks for watching, everyone.
Thank you.
See you next time. Peace. And for people who know the Life from X channel, I used to say, like, catch you on the flip side.
Catch you on the flip side.
Catch you on the flip side.
That's cool.
All right. Bye-bye. End stream.